What's up, guys, and welcome back to Paint Bravely, the podcast where you can find a little bit of encouragement, discover ways to make your hobby a little more fun, and most importantly, learn to paint bravely. Now, like in the last few episodes we've done, we want to kind of catch up a little bit, talk about some of the stuff we've been working on, what we've been painting, or just kind of doing in general. So let's get into that. Brent, what have you been doing since the last time we talked?
Okay. So I'll be honest with you here, Casey. We're in quarantine right now, and so I've been kind of stressing about this question.
Mm.
Like, what have you done in the last 2 weeks? I was worried I'd have to really scrape the bottom of the barrel on this one.
Mm-hmm.
And so in preparation for these episodes, not that we do a lot of preparation for these episodes, but I was at least thinking like, okay, what have I done in the last 2 weeks? What's interesting enough to talk about? What am I going to say? How am I going to respond to that question? But I got one. I finally got one.
Ooh, all right.
Black poster board. Yep.
Black poster board.
So, yes. Normally when I record my YouTube videos, I have not a light box, but it's a little bit like a light box in that there's a draped white poster board in the back as a background. And I got lights everywhere to light that sucker up. And then I have the mini held in front of the poster board, and I do my painting. Very well lit situation, and that's supposed to be good for cameras and filming, right? Well, for more than a year, that's how I've been filming my painting with a white backdrop. But this week, I bought black poster board, and it changed everything. So actually, this was a big week.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah,
I know
going from white to black.
You actually do a lot
switch.
of your filming. Yeah. In the comment section, people leave all kinds of comments on the comment section of a YouTube channel, but I finally got like my first comment that said, "I hate your white backdrop. You should be using, a different color." And normally, that tone, it doesn't sit well with me, but this time I was like, this person is right. They're absolutely right. I'm a monster.
It's been a year and a half.
I regret my choices, and it's time to grow up. Yeah, time to grow up. Time to get with it. Give the people what they deserve.
Yeah,
we'll get some film that doesn't look like garbage. But
yeah, you're 4K.
No, for real though. Yeah. No, I film in 4K, and I try to get as crisp an in focus shot as I can whenever I'm filming painting. But then there's this glaring white background that washes out everything and makes the colors look like garbage. But filming, either painting or just taking still pictures of minis is not an easy task.
No,
and
it's
it's a really big learning curve. And every time where I figure something else out about cameras or lighting or positioning, it's a big day. Like every time I make a little step forward on that stuff, maybe some people will notice, maybe some people won't, but for me it's like, yes. So as soon as I just threw out my white poster board and draped a black poster board back behind where I paint, and then I set up my camera and just got some test shots of just kind of holding a mini and rotating it around a little bit, and I was like, oh yes, this is a million times better. And yeah, it might seem like a small thing, but for me, that just made me happy for the week. And so, and I also knew like pretty soon after that, like, oh, I have something to tell Casey now when he asks me, what have you done in the past 2 weeks? Like, well, I've stayed inside a lot. I left the house twice, but not for very long. Like,
not for where'd you go, Brent?
Yeah, don't worry about it. And
Home Depot.
I painted some minis, but like not very well or very many. So what have I done in the past 2 weeks? Yeah, it's a depressing question if you allow it to be.
Well, I mean, because it is 2 weeks in between, right? Like, you would think that there would be enough time to have done something of note, but I am finding, much like you, that like I gotta think about it for a minute. Like I gotta really think about it before coming here and being like, yes, this is what I did. I feel good about that. Sometimes it's not really that much.
So as this podcast keeps on going, by the end of the year, we'll have 26 of these. Should we do a readout of what we each said as our highlight of the episode and see if it'll be interesting to see if that's like a really depressing list or really motivating and uplifting.
That's a very good point.
I'm not sure right now.
Yeah, I mean the last like however many episodes have been me doing kind of the same thing, but like the next small step, which is kind of sad when you think about it. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, over the last 6 weeks, I did this one thing a little bit at a time,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Reading what happened in 2020. I bought poster board. I
right?
bought some orcs. I combed my cat. Like it could be like a really depressing list.
I think this
But
sounds like a great plan, though. I would love,
all right, we're gonna do
we'll
it. We're gonna do it.
decide who is more depressing at the end of the year. Yeah, we'll put up a poll.
Okay. All right, we'll keep track of what our official answers to this question were, but it's your turn now, Casey. What have you done in the past 2 weeks?
Well,
Better or worse than mine?
well, okay. As far as quality goes, right? That black poster board is gonna make such a huge difference to your models. I know you were about
Mm-hmm.
to say earlier, and I kind of cut you off, but I've been using black backgrounds pretty much the whole time, and just doing some testing before really starting that. You can really tell the difference. The colors just look more vibrant, especially under really bright lights. That black
Mm-hmm.
background just kind of soaks everything up and lets your miniature be the center of attention. So I think that's an awesome move. And even though my stuff this last couple weeks have been, it's a little different. I don't think it's as much of a difference as what you're going to end up seeing, in the long term. So bravo. Yes.
Yeah, these little changes. Seriously though, there's some segment of the internet that kind of talks up light boxes
Hmm.
for shooting pictures of small objects, and a lot of times those are, kind of white translucent sides with a white background.
Yeah.
And I actually did try that very early on in trying to, take pictures of minis.
Sure.
I built myself a light box out of foam board, and then I cut out the sides and put in like parchment paper as the translucent windows, then put lights up against the parchment paper so there's flooding with diffuse light inside there.
Yeah. Yeah.
All white interior, white draped poster board. And I remember like my cell phone especially just freaks out when you put it in that situation.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've tried this before, but with like a white backdrop and you're trying to take a picture of a mini that's well lit, my
Yeah.
phone camera will just freak out. It will not know what to do. Like my phone at the time, like just started flickering, like the viewfinder or
Just
whatever.
can't take it.
The preview of the picture you're about to take was just like strobing at me.
Yeah.
Just because it had no idea what to make of that. Just too much light. It did
Yeah.
not know what to do.
Well, and especially with
And
the phone, it's trying to compensate for like this essentially like the speed of which the lights are going in and the shutter of the camera and that kind of thing. So you end up
mhm,
getting those weird strobe effects. Um
yeah,
Newer
yeah,
cameras are a little better about that. Like I have a newer iPhone and it does all right, but you kind of have to do a few things in order to get that just right.
yeah. And so, I definitely had a phase there where I was using one of those macro mats with
Oh yeah.
the photography backdrops that kind of have the smooth curves, and they look like the backdrop from when you were getting your picture taken in middle school or whatever,
Yep.
where you sit in front of yeah, the nice soft curves, and it looks kind of airbrushed or something, but
Hmm.
just the nice pattern of subdued colors. And I actually really did get good pictures out of that.
Hmm.
And partially I do think there's some photography science there, but
Hmm.
also just having a darker color behind your model actually turns out to be a really useful thing. And the more we do, the more we learn. And I think that just a lot of good lights and a darker color backdrop will go a long way for taking good photos of minis. And I'll keep you updated as I keep learning more here, but
Yeah. Well, I got
we're
I
on the
got a
right
couple
path.
of nuggets, on the
Mm-hmm.
photography subject. Since I use my phone to pretty much do everything for YouTube, I also use it to take pictures of the models, and all of the stuff that I do is all through my phone. And like I feel like, I've gotten all right at photographing my miniatures with my phone. They look decent, the colors are nice and vibrant. And you're right, a lot of that is due to having a darker background. I flood the model with LEDs and as bright as I possibly can, and then turn down the exposure on my phone manually. So, if
Hmm.
you tap your phone screen, it kind of brings up the little focus window generally on an iPhone at least. If you then tap and hold and drag, you can change the exposure level. So if you're on a white background, you can hold up. You kind of push it
Hmm.
makes it so that there aren't any imperfections in your white and it's almost like a glowing effect. Works really well if you're shooting on white. And if you're shooting on black, you kind of dip everything and it turns the background even darker and only really picks up the really lit areas on your model. And since that's really what's reflecting that
Yeah.
that paint color, you're going to get a really nice looking model that way. Now, the other interesting secret to shooting models on your phone is to not actually use the photography camera in your phone. So when you're shooting with video, it tends to look a lot better than if you just take a picture. Because when you take a
Mm.
picture, it's doing all sorts of things in the phone to give you a better looking image than is actually being taken. The sensors are not very big in the phone. So when you take a picture, it runs it through its little algorithm, whatever, softens the face, kind of does like a selfie filter. So it's a very specific look. And when you're taking pictures of models, you're going to lose a lot of detail and it's kind of like the color's not going to look very good, because it's not an actual person or, even actual skin tone. So it doesn't always work very well. If you go into video, it's taking kind of a higher bit rate of video than just a single photo that's been put through a filter. And then you can take screenshots from that video and edit from there. So you're technically getting a little bit more information from your photo and you can edit it a little bit further than you could with just a regular photo. And that's what I've done the whole time and it's worked out.
Yeah, you're getting really good use out of that cell phone. That's great.
Yeah. I've learned all there is to know about iPhones.
Yeah, I got to assume you're getting diminishing returns there, and you're going to cap out after a while. But
I'm getting
that's useful
right at the
information
end.
for yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm starting to
um,
feel it pretty hard actually. The diminishing returns from my phone. I don't know how much better it can be. Like I have a regular camera, like a nice DSLR. I have
hmm.
GoPros and, drones and all these other things and I just can't use them right now. So, eventually I will be using those things. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyways,
Yeah.
what I
So
did in the last
you're
couple
stalling
weeks.
here, Casey. What have you done in the last couple of weeks? You're
Well,
stalling here,
I
Casey.
just I needed time to think. Yours was just so good. I didn't want to sound stupid, you know.
You've had months of trying to sell a pool table. Like
I
you
don't want to
can't keep
talk about
going
it
to the back of
anymore.
that well. Yeah.
So I did some fun things like I made a shadow box piece of art with some used miniatures
Mm.
and that was super fun. Like I've had this idea for a while now and I bought all the stuff for it and I finally was able to sit down in my new space that's not quite done yet, kind of spread out. Like I just had crap everywhere. Like it was all over the floor. I had another desk in there, like a pretty simple, level 2-ish desk. And it was amazing. So I was able to really get down on a project that I wouldn't have really been able to do um otherwise. Like in the space that I'm in, it's just not feasible like to cut foam with a foam cutter, you know.
Hmm.
So that was
Hmm.
pretty awesome. And I also picked up a Night Titan on eBay, like a used one that's painted like, it's all right.
Okay.
Um,
Let's talk about both of those things.
eh.
We'll do which one do you want to do first? Night Titan. What did you spend on a Night Titan? What does a Night Titan run you?
Well, I spent $100 on a painted
Hmm.
Night Titan, and like I said, it's not horrible. Like you could play it in a game. And that's I'm sure what a lot of there were three of them for sale. I only bought one out of the three. But it was an auction, and I
Okay.
just kind of put the number in and just happened to win. So
So I'm actually not super familiar on Titans, but we're talking about a resin model from Forge World originally, right?
no, this is one of the newer plastic, still large Titans, like the larger ones, um, that look like the
Is
Forge
this
World
Adeptus
Titans.
Titanicus?
I think so. Yeah.
Adeptus Ti-
What
Oh,
Titanic?
but it's a smaller scale. It's not 40K.
It is 40K. Yeah. It's like the
Okay,
Titans
so
you
it's a
see on the tables
40K.
that people are playing. Like they run three Titans and a handful of guys, and that's their army. Those Titans.
Are you confusing the word knight with titan?
I don't think so. They are
Okay,
Titans, aren't they? They are
right.
also Night Titans. No.
I don't know. Okay, but you got a knight, kind of one of the more standard size knights.
Yeah, like at least the big version of them in that scale, in the 40K scale.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. You'll see. I'm making
There was a kit that was released like a year or two ago. Is that what we're talking about, or
I think so. Yeah, pretty sure.
okay?
Yeah, I mean they
Okay,
make Forge World ones,
I
but yeah.
sure. I have no experience with this. I've never had my hands on a knight before. Maybe someday, but
Yeah.
um, and this is definitely smaller than the Warlord Titan that you got to work on
Yes. Yeah.
several months back on your
The
channel.
Warlord
Yep.
Titan that I did is 2 feet and some inches tall,
Mm,
and this is like I don't know, was 6, 7 inches tall. Not not terrible, especially looking at 40K. Um,
mm-hmm.
but yeah, not as big as the Warlord Titan. I mean that model on its own, the Warlord Titan from Forge World was like $2,800. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
So do you have a plan for what you're going to do with this one, or
I
did you just
do
see
a
it and
little
thought it
bit.
was
Yeah. Well, I
okay?
wanted to do it because I liked painting that Warlord Titan, and this just seemed like a cool way to do kind of the same thing on a smaller scale. And I also wanted to bust out some of the old cricket skills.
Oh
Not
yeah.
the baseball type cricket game, but the cricket cutter. That cuts different vinyls
Yeah.
and things. So I want to do some like super custom uh what is it? Stencils to do
Yep.
some crazy, so like whatever I can do essentially, like whatever is the coolest thing I can come up with. I'm going to try something awesome.
Yeah. I've got a cricket cutter here, and I mean, it basically looks like a printer,
Yeah.
except what it's doing is it's cutting out shapes in kind of a sheet of like sticky vinyl.
Yeah.
It's cutting out stickers for you basically.
Yeah.
Except the idea is those stickers don't rip off paint when you pull them off, and so
That
you
is
can
correct.
kind of like mask areas of your night shoulder pads or whatever, and spray on some cool stuff.
Yeah.
You've got to figure out your symbols, but so yeah, I always wonder when you're cruising eBay, do you have something specific in mind, or are you just looking for opportunities, or is it all impulse and instinct?
In this case, it was impulse. Like I saw it, it was on auction. There were like 4 hours left. And like I said, there were three of them.
Mm-hmm.
And the listing was like, 99 cent auction, no reserve, which for Titans especially, or whatever, I don't know, whatever, you know what I'm talking about. Like,
No reserve. Yeah, that's
yeah, no
great.
reserve. That's a pretty big deal. Um, Probably means they were stolen at a tournament. So hey, if this was yours, let me know and I'll I'll figure something out. But you know, um, yeah, it was a little bit of an impulse just to see that and go, okay, like there's a sweet possibility I could land this cool model. Like
Mm-hmm.
a Titan would do well on the channel. It's always fun to see. So I just kind of went for it and ended up winning. But for the most part, like I do have pre-saved searches that I kind of go through every day and just check. So I do have this kind of like
Mm-hmm.
ritual of, go through this one, then sort by these specific parameters, and then, if something pops up, either I'll save it or I'll just buy it now. So it does depend, but I do check every day.
Yeah. So I'm curious, if you see that there's 4 hours left on an auction, does that mean you like set your watch and you make sure that you're there and you know get your Red
Yes.
Bulls and you crack your knuckles and like sit down for the final 30 seconds, a test of
Yeah.
wills. Yeah,
Generally,
may the
yes.
may the best man win.
If it's something that I think that I could come in and snipe, which is essentially
Hmm.
bidding in the last like 2 seconds. If you've never done that, you bid a number in the last couple seconds and then hope that no one else is going to upbid that, so that you can save a few dollars here and there by doing that. But
Right,
yeah, I will set
right.
alarms and I will sit and wait and try my best to get something for a good deal. Um, in this case, because I honestly didn't expect to get it at all, I just put in a
Hmm.
number and let it sit. And then I got a notification. It was like, oh, you won. It's like, I did? Like, that's
So
abnormal.
this time you entered your number, 4 hours in advance, or this time you sat there and you sniped it at the 2 second mark with
No,
your
4 hours in advance. And I do that when I'm
nice,
not
nice.
necessarily like, I don't need it. It's not
Hmm.
something that I want to actively go out and get. So I'll just put the number in and whatever happens, happens. And most of the time, you don't win auctions that way because someone
Right.
else can bid an extra dollar and beat you. And that's what they're doing at the last
Yeah.
second. They're trying to get you. Sometimes and it's a little humiliating is seeing, oh, you lost this auction by 25 cents. It's like, oh,
That's fine. Yeah,
yeah,
it's I've done enough eBay purchasing to understand that kind of what you're trying to avoid is somebody getting outbid and then having the time to think about, you know what, I actually would spend an extra $5 on this.
right.
But yeah, like if you are putting in $100 and somebody puts in $101 and then you don't want to have 4 hours to think about it and be like, you know what, I think the street value of this is really, $120, and if I
Hmm.
can get it for under 110, that's fine. You don't want people to have that extra time to rationalize why they should up their bid again.
Right.
If they
Because
didn't
that's where
if
you
they
lose
didn't
the
put in
money.
what their actual yeah,
Yeah.
if they did not put in what their actual maximum bid was when they typed in a number and hit enter,
Hmm.
hours or days ago, that's on them.
Yeah.
So yeah, that I hate that kind of the game mechanics of this works out that way.
Yeah.
But if you want the lowest price on eBay, the best way is to sit there to wait for 10 seconds until the auction's over, type in what your actual maximum amount that you would spend on this item is, and hit that button 5 seconds before it goes, and
Yeah.
and see if anyone else had the same idea or not, or
Yeah.
see if the first person to bid actually put in a higher number than you because they had done all this math for themselves beforehand or
Right.
whatever.
It is an interesting game, like you said, like it kind of sucks that that's how it goes. But I mean, that's, if you went to an auction in person, like somebody flips that card up, it
Yeah.
just is what it is.
Well, you can get a little bit of that, the auction scene in movies and stuff
Yeah.
where you get like two characters bidding against each other, and it's normally the protagonist and then like some
Yeah.
minor bad guy or something, but
Yeah.
or just their rival, their annoying rival or whatever. But you can get a little bit of that if you start bidding like a couple days out from the end of an auction.
Yeah.
If you're like, I bid an hour later, I got outbid. I'll come back around to it. Bid hour later, outbid, and then you go back and you check like who's been bidding, and
Hmm.
you can't see the full name of the user, but you can see just enough of the name to be like,
Like it's
is
the
that
same
same
guy.
guy?
Yeah.
Oh, you're not winning this one, buddy.
Oh, for
Like
real.
two
I've
can play at
totally
this
gotten
game.
in there. Oh, speaking of that,
Like,
that just happened the other day on an auction that I put up. Like I just painted that Star
oh,
Priest.
that's what you want as a seller. That's what you
Oh,
want.
for
That's
sure.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, in this case, it's like, I painted a model, I put it up, and it's for subscribers to see, but I can tell that people are just like, no, this is mine. This is my Star Priest.
Was it the Star Priest?
Yeah, yeah. Well, because there's still
Okay.
like at
Well,
the time of recording, there's still time left, a few days, and I think it's at 100 something now.
Oh, that's awesome. You know, that's a beautiful model. But in this case, Casey, because you have that social media outlet to tell the world about what you're putting on eBay, the
Oh,
funny thing
sure.
here is that the people bidding against each other are your viewers.
I know.
They're your biggest fans are like the ones fighting each other to get that Star
Cutthroating each
Priest,
other
which is
for a Star Priest,
um thank you for supporting Casey. That's awesome that you're
which is
doing
what I
that.
was
Yeah,
gonna
you won't
say.
be disappointed. That was a great video and a great model, but yeah, Casey, be careful not to like jeer
No,
your
no, no.
bidders too much here.
I
Like
just think it's
these
one of those
morons
things
are bidding
like
against each other,
I
and
did not say that. Don't you put words in my mouth. No, I think it's great. Like I was gonna say because it's all going back into the channel, right?
right,
So it's kind of nice to see
right.
that people care enough to do that even in the middle of the week. They're not waiting till the end to snipe. They're like, well, this is what I would pay and how I would support. And I mean,
Hmm.
I think that's amazing. Like I never thought I'd be in a situation
Yeah,
where
no,
that
that
would end
is
up
awesome,
happening.
and
Yeah.
and if there is a rivalry going on that Star Priest, I got to assume it's a friendly rivalry,
Oh, I'm sure.
and
Yeah.
yeah, let this be your biweekly reminder to look into Seraphon. They're a great
Mhm.
army. There's a lot of great models in the Lizardmen range,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
if you haven't thought about that yet this episode, think about it. You know,
Yeah.
Seraphon. Yeah,
I was pleasantly not maybe not surprised. I was very happy to paint a Seraphon model. It was very nice.
mm, mm-hmm.
Yeah. I didn't think I would enjoy it that much, but kind of brought that 12-year-old dinosaur loving kid out of me, you know?
Yeah. So the one we're talking about here is a little skink character, which is one of the smaller lizards, but he's a star priest, so that means he has like decorative feathers and stuff sticking out everywhere, and he's got runes and
Hmm.
just
Hmm.
an option or option an opportunity to use as many awesome colors as you want, and lizard skin feathers, those can be any color in the rainbow, so go nuts with it.
I mean, that's what I did. Still don't think it's as good as your poster board though. Like that's gonna win because that's gonna be benefiting you for years.
Yeah, that's the gift that keeps on giving right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, every time I make a little improvement in the setup, and last episode we were talking about painting setups, and every time you figure something out to make your organization and your system a little bit better, that's a good feeling because
Yeah.
you're gonna keep that knowledge with you, and you're gonna be able, to use that anytime.
Yeah, for sure. Now,
Yeah.
something interesting did happen last week. And I don't know if anybody who listens to this watches a certain artist on YouTube by the name of Jazza. But he's a pretty awesome YouTuber. I've been watching him for a while. He's got a lot of really cool art videos, mostly drawing, but he's been branching out lately. And one of the things he started to do again was to get into Warhammer 40K. Now, might not seem like a huge deal, but the dude has over 5 million subscribers. And not only that, but he gave Brent a good shout out on the channel.
Yeah, so that was cool. Uh, yeah, no, it's good for the hobby. It's obviously awesome, kind of an awesome feeling for me over here, getting a shout out from old Jazza there. But yeah, that was cool. So this YouTuber, this artist, is getting back into Warhammer, and he's done a couple of videos with Space Marines and stuff in it before. He does a wide range of art, but he's done some really impressive projects. You may have seen the video where he paints up a little Blood Angel Space Marine, and then he puts on his
The Oculus.
3D
Yeah.
virtual reality goggles and he sculpts that Marine. He then prints it out like 2 feet tall, and then he paints that giant 3D print.
Yes.
And yeah, he's got the motivation and the inspiration and the resources and the talent to do some really awesome stuff, and so his channel has gone far. Um,
Hmm.
he's also the brother of Shadiversary, Shadiversity. Sorry, Shad. He's a YouTuber who's still way bigger than either of us. Not as big as his brother, but well, Shadiversity does like how knights really fought, and would the broadsword really beat the battle axe, and how were castles created? You know,
Had
there's a
no
few of
idea.
that type of channel out there, and
Yeah.
uh, you may have heard of like Lindy Beige or Metatron. It's in that genre. And so, yeah, Jazzo's brother is also a fairly well-known YouTuber. And if Casey, if you're getting comments on your channel like, you know, that thing that you drew on there isn't actually a tabard, like that, you're getting that comment from somebody who just
Oh,
watched a Shadiversity video. Yeah, so
right. I
like
I
kind of
have
medieval
I have a
history,
lot
and
of
yeah.
those comments. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So you should look into Shadiversity.
Yeah. Maybe
Black
I'll
Magic
give it a
Craft, I
half.
know. Yeah, Black Magic Craft gets some comments. You know, castles weren't really constructed like that. The way you put those foam blocks together and like scored them to look like wood. Yeah. Um, I don't think they'd really put a support in that place. Like, oh
Like I
no.
don't think they were building in this scale either, huh?
Yeah.
Maybe you should up that size a little.
Actually, Lindy Beige himself posted on one of Real Terrain Hobbies videos. So
Really?
Neil did a video where he's painting up that tabletop terrain, tabletop world buildings and stuff. They're really nice
Yeah.
resin buildings, and they're kind of medieval buildings, and they have a tons of little details sculpted on there. And one of the details sculpted on to this little farmhouse is a couple of ears of corn hanging from the rafters, and there's like a pumpkin sitting on the steps. And old old Lindy Beige has to come in and be like, corn was not in medieval Europe. Like,
Like I will stab you. Come on, man.
And I've watched a decent bit of Lindy Beige in my time, and I enjoy him. And you know, you go through phases where that really hits the spot, but then like, oh come on, man,
Yeah.
like, yeah,
Well, like what?
this
You
is
just
this is
trolling
not a
other
medieval
people?
building. This is a fantasy building, and in
Yeah.
my fantasy town, there can be wattle,
There can
daub,
be
and
whatever I
maze,
want.
and it's fine.
Yes. Like in my fantasy
In
setting.
my fantasy world, the Vikings brought back corn. Deal with it, like
For
you know,
real. I mean, come on. Like, I mean, there is a certain point when like knowledge, like you can take that too far, and you can start to
Yeah, get
impose
that.
that on people, and it's like, look, like this, what you're trying to say is irrelevant. It doesn't matter.
Mhm.
Like it's
Yeah.
fantasy. It's whatever. Even if it was like, well, this is medieval, and I'm doing this for my model trains or whatever it is. Like, dude painted a sweet looking house. I mean, what more do you want? It doesn't have to be historically accurate to Fakeville. Like, come on. Kill
Yeah,
me
yeah.
with your corn.
There's something to be said for the ability to drop that suspension of disbelief. You know?
Right.
The Illuminati didn't actually try to kill Tom Hanks, but it made for like a fun little book, you know? Like,
Yeah.
yeah. The stonemasons didn't come after Tom Hanks and turn his mentor against him, but you know, it was popular. You
Yeah.
just believe it and see where it takes you. Like that
Mhm.
corn, those kernels of corn hanging on that wall look good in that little model.
Exactly.
And
He painted each
you
individual.
got to be able
kernel.
to
He gave them
appreciate the little
love.
things. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is a little sad to hear.
yeah,
I'm sorry
but
that happened to
where do we
me.
get there? Oh yeah. So anyway, Jazzo's getting back into Warhammer, which is
Yes.
awesome for our hobby, really.
It is. Yeah.
In terms of all the different hobbies that are out there, you know, as many people paint minis, it's still a niche hobby in the overall scheme of things. And so the more big names, big voices doing Warhammer, that's great. Jazza, of course, there was Henry Cavill a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Had kind of the viral post of him painting
Oh,
up
yeah.
Custodes helmet.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Like, you know, people who like Superman and The Witcher should be like, what's that? That looks cool. What's that?
Yeah.
You know, get broadening exposure to this stuff, never a bad thing. And
No, not at all.
of course, the very next day after Jazz's video and it was a video saying like I'm getting back into painting minis. This is a hobby I've always loved, and it's kind of fun to have a little art hobby that's just for him, because his whole channel is doing art stuff, and so he's saying like,
Yeah.
maybe I can have some minis stashed in my drawer on the side as something just for me to relax with, and that's awesome. And then the very next video he did, like the very next day, he posted a video which was a portable hobby kit. So he dressed
Mm-hmm.
up a box that like puts down a suitcase kind of, and all the sides of the suitcase fold flat, and there's the perfect little array of paints and brushes and minis and holders and tools and everything. A nice little setup, a nice little portable hobby desk setup. And based on episode 4 of Paint Bravely, I think we would have defined that as a level 1 painting area.
Right.
The portable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that was a
it's
good
so
setup though.
nice.
So that's like 1.5. That's like,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah,
If you got a really nice kit to lay out, on your kitchen table when it's hobby time, and that's a high level 1 hobby area, maybe level 2.
well, and I think he mentioned also that he has a desk kind of in a corner where like he's gonna keep it all. So technically he does have an open spaced, publicly available, uh,
Oh,
accessible
that's
to
at least
children
2. That's
space. Yeah,
oh yeah,
but I mean
that's at
he
least
built
2.
the
Yeah,
box
yeah.
to put it in so that he didn't have to worry about it. Probably,
Nice,
Um,
nice.
yeah, like super nice though, really nice case. Um, I mean, it pretty much had everything in there. Like he threw toilet paper in there, which I thought was a little strange. Um, cut down a paper towel roll, I think might have worked a little better,
Yeah,
but whatever.
yeah. Still good, still good. Um, yeah, that's what's new in the world here.
Yeah, and that's what's been going on the last few weeks.
Okay, I assume you're like slowly in the background setting up your new studio and kind of saving that for a
Mhm.
month or two from now when you'll do the big reveal. And
Yeah, yeah.
okay,
I'm
I
I'm
don't want you to burn too many of your
right.
your updates all at once here, but
Yeah,
you can
like I
tell
put
us
I
if
put up some
there's
video
something.
updates on the last video that I did, and um, just some real quick ones of construction, that kind of thing. But I am planning on doing like a whole video and reveal and all this. But of course, right now, furniture, I can't get it quickly, so I have to
Mm,
wait, and oh, it's making me anxious. Like I don't want to wait for a friggin' table. That's why it's like I was pretty excited to do that other project because I have like a smaller desk that was just like a computer desk, and I was able to just kind of go out there, pull it into the middle of the room, throw the lights up, do the things, and like it felt good. So, I'm getting some use out
that's
of it,
right.
but it's not quite
We
ready.
didn't talk about your shadow box. That's right.
Oh, you're right.
So I've seen a picture of this. I've seen a picture of this, but Casey took one of those shadow boxes that you can get at like a craft store or whatever. It's kind of like a picture frame, except it's got like 2 inches of
Yeah,
shelf
a
space
little bit of
inside,
depth.
sort of thing.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe you. Maybe, what's it made for? Spoons. It's about spoon
Spoons.
size,
It's
right?
definitely spoons.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know why else you'd
yeah.
buy one, really. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah. So Casey got the shadow box that's about the right size for like 4 or 5 like decorative silver teaspoons to be
mhm,
kind of
mhm.
stuck up in there and hung on the wall. And you did some styrofoam sculpting, and you painted up a couple of minis, and you've got this scene of night goblins like running through caves, and
Yeah.
there's also like a spider on the ceiling, and it looks amazing.
Well,
Um,
thank you.
it's just a really, really great format for a little diorama. Just
Hmm.
kind of like a 2D slice. I mean, almost like a platformer, like a Mario or something. It's just
Yeah,
this
very much
little
so.
slice of a world, and a model is maybe an inch thick, so most
Hmm.
models will fit right into a shadow box like that. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that video. Probably by the time this podcast drops, it'll be out. But
Yeah, by the time this
I think that's going to
podcast
be a
is
good
out,
one.
yeah, It'll have
Yeah,
been
yeah, yeah.
some time. Um, which is weird. We don't record these technically on like a schedule. It's like when we can do it. So, sometimes we don't want to talk about what we're painting. Sometimes we do. It all depends. But yeah, it should be
Yeah,
up by the time this is up. So yeah,
right,
I'll throw that in the,
right.
the
And
description.
Casey, you and I have been talking about this project for a little while. Like both of
Hmm.
us independently had an idea to do, a shadow box project. And in the
Yeah.
back of my mind, I've had the idea for dwarves and Skaven were at the back of my mind. Like the idea of
Mm,
like a couple
yes.
of dwarven miners were kind of making a tunnel, and some Skaven were making a tunnel, and those tunnels were
They're
like
gonna meet in the middle,
about to merge or something.
like both on
And
each side. We're almost there. They don't see each other.
yeah, yeah, it's an awesome, like, just a shadow box is such a fun idea for a diorama. It's
Yeah.
kind of the perfect dimensions for minis because it sticks out from the wall or whatever just enough to fit, 2 dimensions of whatever mini scene you want to have in there. I've
Hmm.
thought about trying to do like a joust before or something.
Yeah.
Certainly any of this underground stuff is perfect. Um, like a really fun little project. And you know what, Casey? We're going to use this as our segue here.
Yeah.
What we actually want to talk about in this episode is how do you pick your next project?
How do you
So
pick your
that's
next project?
we're an hour in now, but that's what this episode is about. When all of us have probably a lot of ideas. Some people may
Hmm.
be at the very beginning of their hobby journey and just have like one box of liberators that they need to work themselves through, and so they don't have as many ideas as folks have been in the hobby for a while. But
Hmm.
for most of us, we're always acquiring inspiration and models and ideas and supplies. And it is a real challenge to, I don't know if challenge is the right word, but it's certainly a challenge to get through your list. But it's always a big question of what's next.
Yeah.
And so when you finish a project, you put your final brushstroke on there or do the base up, maybe a coat of varnish. You finish a project. What's next? You're
Yeah.
for just a moment in time, your hobby desk is clean and you don't have a focal point of something that you're actively working on. What's next?
I mean, that's always the big question, right? Like you finish, you feel really good about it. Do you really want to start that process over? Like go through that ugly phase again and yeah, you got to you got to find something that motivates you enough to get past that, knowing that that's what's coming up, right? So, like for me, I've got just a ridiculous amount of models that are just sitting. And I mean, it's because I go on eBay a lot and I buy different models and like people do send me models occasionally for the channel. Um
Mm-hmm.
so I got to like think about all these different things that come into play when picking a model. It's not always what I want to paint the most. Um Sometimes it's like, well, I feel like I need to do this, so I should do this. Um there's a lot of different reasons, I guess, for painting each model. And yeah, I wish it was a little easier sometimes, honestly, because I do have a hard time
So
picking.
So for a lot of people, the pile of shame, as it's called, kind of builds up because something new keeps coming along, and
Yeah.
you buy a couple of boxes of models that you're really excited about, and maybe you actually paint a few bottles up before kind of the next new thing comes along that you get excited about. So, we just talked about you buying a knight, Gacy.
Yeah.
Like right now, are you excited to bust out your Cricut and to cut up some stencils and to paint that knight? Like,
In this moment, right
is
now,
the knight in the top 5 of your list right now?
for sure. Yeah, I'm super
Yeah.
excited
Okay.
for when that comes in. And that is like because I wasn't exactly expecting to get it and I got it for like the
Mm.
price that I was hoping to get it for. Um so like that feels pretty good and it makes me motivated. I've got a handful of other models that will require some work in order to really get them ready for painting. And so I feel a little less inclined to do that work. Like I've got a lot of models that I haven't even built. and I don't particularly care for building models in general. Like I like painting models.
Hmm.
So, if there's a model that either needs paint stripped or it's clean already, I'm more inclined to pick something from that kind of area on my shelf rather than building something new, even if, it was an even cooler model that I was excited about. So that's definitely something to think about when you're going through it and picking that, is that I don't know, you don't always have the best choices, like in that sense, I guess. If you don't
Yeah,
like to do
it is
something.
interesting how like the immediate next steps on a project can somehow like steer you between
Right.
major project choices. Like I actually kind of like assembling models.
Hmm.
So for me, I have a decent number of assembled and either primed or just completely bare plastic models right now. Um, for me, like while I'm watching TV or while I'm doing an online RPG with my friends or something like that, it's actually pretty easy to just be sitting there with an X-Acto blade and scraping mold lines and, kind of holding two parts together while something else is going on while I'm watching TV or talking to friends or whatever. And so for me, I pick up a lot of early quick assembly projects and then those go back into my pile of shame for an indefinite amount of time.
Yeah. But hey, at
um,
least they're built. They're not in a
yeah,
box anymore, and that is progress. That is hobby progress.
sure it is. Yeah, the resale value of those minis just went down. That's great. Yep.
No longer
Um,
new in the box. That's true. It's a good point.
exactly. No shrink wrap on that. But what you said about cleaning minis is actually interesting. So for you, you really like the process of stripping old paint off a mini, right?
I mean, I do, because there's that transformation aspect of
Yeah.
seeing it before, having the pictures of the model when I got it from eBay, and it just, unfortunately looks like crap. So, stripping that paint off, cleaning the model from there, um, there's just that sense of satisfaction of like getting work done. Whereas like
Yep.
building for me is, it's some, I don't know, it's weird. It just doesn't give that same level of satisfaction. And I don't know if it's because the model's new and it doesn't really matter. There's probably 100 other, whatever. I mean, thousands of other of this kit. Whereas something I bought off eBay, it's like, sometimes you don't see those models very often. So yeah, cleaning off an older
Hmm.
model, even if it's a couple years old, making it look so nice again. Just there's a level of satisfaction that definitely gets me there.
So yeah, let's explore that a little bit more. So I definitely had a phase where I was really into stripping models. I
Hmm.
all the random stuff I got off of Craigslist and eBay and stuff. Like there were probably a couple months of my life where the hobby progress I made was dunking models in LA's Totally Awesome or Super Clean or whatever. And like the most brushing I did was with like a toothbrush at the
Yeah,
sink, like
toothbrush.
getting the gunk off of the
Uh huh.
models. And I think that's a situation where I was not getting anything coming off of my assembly line other than going from nasty used models to like lightly worn assembled models, I guess.
Right.
Um, but I think the reason for me in that case where I was choosing those projects over all of my painting projects was because I actually really like one, it was easy. Like there's nothing easier than just dropping a model in a vat of liquid.
Hmm.
Um, and easy, straightforward, and there is that fun that
Yeah.
comes with cleaning something up. It's quick, it's easy. There's some fun to it, and so part of what was guiding me there in terms of choosing that project was the immediate action, like what I would get to do with my hands that day. It wasn't an overarching like what do I want to have coming off of my assembly line. It was like what do I want to do today? What would be fun today?
Hmm.
But are you? it seems from watching your channel that you're actually pretty good at then going from, okay, I've just cleaned this mini up, to then, like, you seem to be good about then priming it and painting it. Is that an
Yeah,
accurate representation?
I'd say so. I mean, I have a good amount of models that, I've cleaned up, and I've gotten video of that process for each one of them. So, or at least the model beforehand, So I kind of
Hmm.
have some set aside that I can just jump into real quick. But because I'm using a sonic cleaner, which is a real nice tool if you're looking to strip models. Getting a sonic cleaner that
Hmm.
agitates that paint and really gets the soap in there from that LA's Totally Awesome or Simple Green. Like I can strip a
Hmm.
model in 15 minutes. So it is almost instant gratification as far as like this model looks disgusting. I'm gonna clean it and start painting it and get some good progress in. And like I mean, yeah, like I said, it's 15-20 minutes. You're already throwing down a base coat of primer. So it can go pretty quick. And I mean I've been doing it for a while. So like, I do feel like I'm pretty good at it at this point. Like I can get the stuff on there and it feels like any other normal project. Like stripping doesn't necessarily play into, I guess, like a downside so much. Like if I'm looking
Right.
into models, it's like, okay, well, I'm picking through a model. I'm trying to pick what model fit, honestly fits for YouTube that week and fits for my schedule.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
a whole other aside that like we do have to deal with, but
Okay, cool. Yeah.
yeah.
I was gonna say, actually, in some ways, the biggest thing that YouTube does to us is keeps us from focusing on any one thing.
Yeah.
Um, speaking of goblins, like, just in terms of being able to play a game with my friends, after
Mhm.
I did that 100 goblins video, I should have done a video on squigs, and following that, I should have done trolls, and following that, I should have done more goblins, and then more goblins, and then more goblins. And
Yeah.
that would have been really good for getting an army made, and possibly for the channel not as good because anyone who doesn't collect goblins is just going to stop watching.
Exactly.
um, and so, the motivator for a lot of people to paint minis is to get minis ready for games,
Yeah.
and that's a little bit less true for both of us. Now, I certainly still do have a couple of friends who want to play Age of Sigmar with me. A few years ago, they really wanted to play 40k with me, and now it's Age of Sigmar, and
Mhm.
I think that'll switch back from time to time. So I definitely have external motivation to eventually get a full army ready, and I'm hoping that I do that.
Yeah, well, I mean, hey, if you
um,
do a few more of those 24-hour paint marathons, then
hmm
you probably get there.
Yeah, we'll get in the right direction. I am intending to do a couple of big blockbuster videos on, like, just we need to get this army done so that my friends
Yeah.
stop badgering me about this.
Stop.
But
Exactly.
yeah, yeah, it's one of those things where I keep getting updates from my friend Mark, and he's like, yeah, I painted another 20 dryads, and here's my tree man, and this
Right.
lady rides on a beetle. And, like, Mark, slow down. Like, that I've
Please.
painted a Skaven and some robots
Mhm. Mhm.
and some lizard people, and, like, Mark, you got to slow down, buddy. Like, this
Mark.
escalation league is
Mark.
getting
Come on.
way out of hand, and um but for a lot of us, there is always this, using models in a game,
Mhm.
and not that it's a commitment exactly, but it does feel like a kind of pressing item on your to-do list. Like, that
Yeah.
is always there. If you do not have uh 2000 points of whatever army that you're really happy with, painting something for the Warhammer army that you're supposed to be playing with your friends, like, that's on your list of projects you should probably get to one of these days.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'd say that's definitely the main motivator for most people is, hey, I got a game, we're meeting up at the shop in a couple weeks and, I've got 500 points to paint, try and get that done. And that's definitely what you're going for. You're trying to fill out your list. And I mean,
Hmm.
that's a perfectly valid way to pick your models. Um, Hopefully you're not getting too burnt out on painting an entire army, because that's always my problem. Is I'll get halfway through something and just be like, "Ah, I can't paint any more of this," you know.
Hmm.
So that's a little tough. And especially now with YouTube on top of it, trying to get to my own stuff, like there's that guilty feeling of I should really be painting something else right now.
Yeah, so let's talk about the commitments first, and then we can get to the desires. Like, I mean, with painting an army, there's a lot of times where, people get a new unit for their army and they're super excited to paint up those jet bikes or
Hmm.
whatever it is. Like, just because you're painting something for a game does not mean that it has to be a chore.
Oh yeah,
There
for
are
sure.
absolutely moments within there that you're really excited about this next squad that you're working on, or the paint scheme that you're doing for your elites, or
Hmm.
whatever the case may be. But for just a minute here, let's keep focusing on the when painting feels like a commitment, and not that you are against painting a said model, but for
Right.
whatever reason it feels like, in addition to being a fun painting project, it is also an obligation.
Yeah.
And I feel that the start of that is getting up to 2,000 points of Space Marines and/or Lizard Men, before you can really enjoy painting your Star Priest. Um,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I do feel like once you hit that kind of threshold of I've got an army, it's playable. It might not be the best, but now that I have the army, I can go, oh, it would be so good for this army. It might make it even more fun, and I can do these things.
hmm
Is I buy a box of
hmm
this, and there's 5 models in
hmm
it, and you are incredibly excited to paint those 5 models because you don't have that obligation, but getting there, like, you definitely feel like, well, I got, battle line to paint. I feel pretty obligated to do that, considering I can't even play the rest of the army without my battle line.
hmm
Yeah.
Even if you have a fun paint scheme in mind, even if you actually enjoy the process of putting paint on the model, even if you know that kind of getting all these finished and laid out on a table is going to look amazing, there's still that feeling of, Mark Mark said that the 1,000 point game we just played was fun, but now he wants to do a 1,500 point game.
Yeah.
And I know by next month he's going to have that beetle painted and he's going to want to be up to 2,000 points.
See, that's
And
unfair though. You
I've,
get your 700 point
do you know
friggin'
how
beetle.
few points a goblin is worth? Like,
Exactly. Come on. It's not fair. Come on, Mark.
um, right. Should I have changed his name for purposes of
No.
anonymity?
No, you should not
Anonymity?
have.
No,
Mm.
no.
I'm gonna call you out,
Um,
Mark.
No, Mark isn't wrong for wanting,
No, no,
to
not at
play a
all.
game. Like, no, no,
Good
I'm glad that
intentions.
I've
Hmm.
got friends who want to play with me. That's good. But
Yeah.
if Mark could just like chill at 500 points for a little bit longer, I would appreciate it. You know?
Right?
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do.
Um, but yeah, and that's why, skirmish games are so appealing to a lot of people, is because there's not that massive hill to climb up to be able to play a painted game.
Yeah. There's a logical aspect to that though, is that
Mm,
I can paint an army at said level, right? Your tabletop standard, if you will. But a warband, a skirmish warband, well, you only have 10 models there. So
yeah.
are you supposed to paint them to the best of your ability and that is your warband? Like there is that question that goes on. For me personally, no, I just keep them tabletop so I can play with them. But a lot of people take warbands to that level because it's like a smaller project. They want to spend the time with their model, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. If you're going to paint up 10 minis to a pretty decent level, do you want those 10 minis to be 100% of what you need for a game of Kill Team, Necromunda, whatever?
Mhm.
Or do you want that to be 10% of your army list and you have to do that 9 more times to get to 2,000 points? And so that's one of those times where, painting that battle
Mhm.
line, painting those troops choice starts to feel like like an obligation. And that's not the only time that painting can feel like an obligation. I mean, just the act of owning a bunch of unpainted models can start to feel like an obligation. And so, on our
Mhm.
list of things that could be our next project, and we should probably paint one of these days, are everything in this room,
Yeah.
everything in my basement, everything under my desk.
It's a bit overwhelming. Yeah.
Yeah. And so those, I mean, those are simply the simple act of owning a model. I mean, that's a long-term obligation. That's sometime
Mhm.
between when I die or sell this model, I need to paint this model. You know that.
Yeah.
So it's, which is a different kind of obligation. But you talked a little bit before about um, doing commissions or kind of more of a telling somebody that you are going to paint a model, and that's there's a
Yeah.
lot of varieties of that, but that's an
Yeah.
obligation in its own right.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it just jumping off the YouTube angle, if you're doing a collaboration with somebody, there's usually a hard deadline for that. So you feel pretty obligated to do that thing.
Right. Before we keep
Oh,
go any further, I'm sorry about all those times I missed my deadline on collaborations with you personally, Casey.
well, I appreciate that. Yeah. Wasn't gonna get into that, but
You're not obligated to forgive me, but I feel obligated to at least issue the apology.
well, we'll see where that lands at some point. We'll get there.
Hmm. Hmm.
No, those all turned out great, man. Those were fun.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
should do that again. Anyways, yeah, like you like you have those, from our perspective, those obligations. I also personally do commissions every so often, and man, yeah, when someone gives you money to paint a model, like it doesn't matter if I want to paint that or not, like emotionally that jumps to the top of the list. I do not have a choice, even if I do, technically, and I have to paint that as fast as possible. Can weigh on you a little bit because it's not always the thing you want to be doing. You would much rather be doing something else, but you agree to a job, and so you just kind of got to get down and do that. Um, like for the most part, the commissions that I've had have actually just worked out for me. Um, like there've been a couple that I had to figure something out for filming or for whatever. Because I ask for a specific kind of commission in general. Like I have guidelines now. I didn't before. I have now, and
Hmm.
that's really helped like keep them in line with the things I want to be doing. And I mean, if at some point, I don't know if it'll be this podcast or another one, but I know we want to talk about commission painting in a little more depth, but that is certainly something to think about, in picking your next project is do you have to or do you want to? Like sometimes, yeah, the lines cross a little bit. That gets a little tough.
Yeah. So I have not yet taken money for painting anything, and based on everyone I've talked to, I don't think that's the right choice for me.
Yeah.
Um, but I certainly have taken on obligations of painting where I've told somebody that I'm going to paint something, and we've talked about collaborations between you and I, but I have outstanding collaborations from like four or five or more people right
Yeah.
now, and some of those are several of those are sitting on my desk. Is like, yeah, I should get to this. And
Right.
collaboration video is awesome whenever it comes out, but some of these, yeah, I should kind of be moving along on there. So
Hmm.
um again, it's one of those things where you told someone you'd do something, and maybe you just told a friend, like, yeah, if you buy a Necromunda starter set, I'll buy one, and then we can play sometime. And
Yeah.
it can be a side game. It can be just any time where you tell somebody that, yeah, we'll do this, and it'll be great. And
Hmm.
as part of that little informal commitment, I've got to paint 10 whatever.
Yeah.
Um, now, right now, a commitment I've made that has a hard deadline is I volunteered to paint some Space Marines for Nova Open charity raffle.
Oh, sure.
So, yeah, so every year the Nova convention has a separate organization that goes there that does a charity raffle.
Hmm.
And so there'll be a lot of times like a couple of Space Marine armies, and they'll have raffles for nice painted minis or nice painted armies or forces or whatever. And so I volunteered to paint some Space Marines for one of their big Space Marine raffles.
Nice.
And there's, I don't know, 5 or 6 other people participating in this, and it's it's gonna be awesome. Like it's like I'm really excited. It's a Blood Angel theme, and kind of the color scheme sounds like it's gonna be awesome. Blood Angels is something that I've been thinking about for a while. I am legitimately excited for this, and it is also an obligation that I agreed to do. And
It's
so,
a very hard
on
deadline.
all of my list of possible things to work on, this fun activity has a deadline and people counting on it.
Right.
Um,
That's some pressure. Yeah.
right, and all of us take on various things, but some of our painting projects can have that feeling of obligation, or at least like in picking the next fun thing I want to do, keep in mind that these ones I do need to eventually do.
Right. Well, in that in itself, it feels very much like a commission. Like you're not getting paid for it. It's a whole raffle and all this stuff. But like the
Mhm.
fact that there are other people counting on you to finish it by a certain time. I mean, that's really what a commission is, anyways. And obviously for
Sure.
something like this, you're gonna want to try your best. You're gonna want to make them
Yeah, yeah,
look
yeah.
the best you can. So it is very similar. Yeah.
Hmm.
Now, if you enjoy that feeling that you get in the pit of your stomach, you should definitely do commissions. If not, maybe stay away. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's all right. Let's think about the types of painting. So there's the types of painting you feel like you have to do
Hmm.
for games, and we didn't even talk about tournaments. Like this
Right. Yeah.
deadline, like there, I mentioned the open-ended feeling with like I can only keep allying in like unpainted forces from other armies with Mark for so long before like I
Just
yeah.
proxy
Um,
everything.
right.
All
I
these
can
goblins.
only proxy stuff for so long
Yeah.
before like Mark stops inviting me to play games. Um but there's also like maybe you signed up to go to a tournament.
Hmm.
Either that's at a local store, there's a tournament at a local store, or you're going to go to Nova Open to
Yeah.
play in a tournament, and there's a date on that, and you better have your army dry by the time you show up to that table.
Right. Yeah. An interesting thing about the tournament scene, at least from what I've seen, um, usually there's like a very specific set of like guidelines. It's the whole like 3 color minimum, that kind of thing. Um, when I went to Las Vegas for LVO, like I think I saw one army that was actually just straight 3 color. Like they had painted it, the week before to get ready for the tournament. I think it was the only one that I saw. Otherwise, I mean, they're a little more strict in that tournament for painting and stuff, but like the paint jobs were outstanding, like across the
That's awesome.
entire hall. Like it was honestly incredible to see from a lot of the stories that I've heard from people going to different tournaments. It's like, yeah, there's gray army over here. You got some primer, a zenithal, and like a spray from an airbrush and color, whatever. There's your army. Like I didn't see any of that. It was amazing. Like these people worked for
Yeah,
months, I'm sure.
that sounds awesome. That sounds like an event you'd want to go to. But on
Right.
the other hand, there's that pressure again. Like
Yeah.
everybody else is going to be looking awesome, and everybody else is going to get to play against opponents with awesome looking armies and get cool pictures of the battle, and get great Instagram pictures of their army destroying some Eldar or whatever. And
Hmm.
if I don't paint my Eldar, well, but I mean, it's a sliding scale of responsibility. You can cut as many
Sure.
corners as you want to on painting for a tournament, but it's still, even if it is just that 3 colors, you feel like, okay, I've got to get this done. But really, you have your own standards in mind for where
Oh
you
yeah.
you were planning on taking that army. So
Yeah.
really, you're trying to meet your standards by the hard date of when those dice are going to get rolled. So
Yeah. for sure. What else is there? So there's those different categories.
Well, so eventually we're going to get into the what do you really want to do, and when you have things that you want to do and you have free choice, how do
Yeah.
you choose between them? So we're not trying to be like downers on like, and then I have to paint this model and I have to
Right,
paint
right.
this
No,
model
we're
and I
just
have
trying to go
paint
through
2000.
the options.
Yeah, just going
Yeah.
through the motivations that people go through. So yeah, I mean, we both of us have a ton of options in terms of what our next project is going to be, and they're
Yeah.
all vying for our attention and our time. And we're just talking about the inputs that go into what actually ends up on the painting desk next.
Yes.
And so let me mention this idea now. I had
Mhm.
an idea for a video a few days ago actually, and I am really excited. So my cat just woke up and is going to play on some paper now. I
Now,
had
see, we had this conversation earlier, Brent, about that paper when you took it off your desk.
did I say
and
the
then
word
you,
I'm sorry? Did I apologize?
you put it down on the floor, and I'm
I
like,
think
"Hey,
I might
now
just
the
be
cats are getting-"
explaining.
No,
Yeah, there's a difference
no,
between
you're
an
fine.
explanation and an apology.
Oh, you don't have to apologize. No. We've heard this.
Yeah,
from
so I had
many
craft
comments on the
paper
YouTube channel.
on this table.
Totally fine.
No apologies.
No apologies.
I had craft paper on this table, and I took it off right before we started filming and recording here because I didn't want like my elbows to be crinkling on the paper.
Right.
And my cat just woke up and went to go, like, there's now just a sheet of craft paper sitting on like the carpet next to the table, and so this cat just wanders over.
Of course. Of course it does.
Ooh, but it just transitioned into the Snapple box, so I
Ooh,
think that's
okay.
going to be a little quieter.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's-
that's what
it's
that
home for a
Snapple box
minute.
is for.
Heck yeah.
I've had questions on my main channel of why is there a pillow on the shelf behind you? And that's part of that painting
you
desk
watch, you'll
philosophy.
find out.
Give your cat somewhere to sit
Yeah.
out of the way. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, okay, what I was saying, I had an idea for a video, which is also just an idea for picking my next project. Sometimes when I say an idea for a video, that's an idea for a painting project that's gonna get done.
Oh, for sure.
My idea for this video was to hit the record button on the camera and then decide what model or models do I most want to paint today. No obligation, no prior planning. Maybe root through my collection a little bit and say what sparks joy today. Like, and you could certainly do this at a store too. Of just like I'm going to go to the store. I'm going to look around. I'm going to buy a model that I am going to paint today or start painting today.
Yeah.
Just out of all the options, forget deadlines and armies and what you told somebody you'd do. Forget all that for a moment. You started this hobby because you wanted to paint awesome minis. You wanted to take something that grabbed your attention and pulled you right in and put a cool coat of paint down on it.
Yeah.
And so that's my idea for a video, and I think I need to do it soon. One, because I'm excited about this idea, but two, like if I don't do it soon, I'm going to like accidentally start planning this video before I hit record. I'm going to like know what the mini is. Yeah. So I had this idea a few days ago, but the idea is like, yeah, hit record, and I think, okay, what is like sitting here right now? What is the coolest mini in my? I mean, it's all subjective, but to me, now, what is the most fun project I could be working on? And then I go and do it, and it might be some used model I bought 5 years ago, or no limits. It could be a gray model from an army I'm planning to build someday, but don't save anything for some future army. Just, do you want to paint that right now? Paint it right now. Buy another war boss later if you need to make a war boss for the army that you're eventually maybe going to complete in 5 years. If you want to paint an orc war boss to like right now, that's what you should be painting
100%.
right now. Like throw it all out. Like throw out all of the obligations, and I'm saving this model for this, or I'm saving this model for that. Like, I actually want to do. And so I need to film this soon because I'm already thinking about like, okay, I'm gonna look at like this part of my collection, and I've got the Silver Tower box, and I know there's a lot of cool models in
There's
there,
a lot
or
of
I've got
cool
these
models in
3D
there. Yeah,
prints, and I've got, ooh,
it's
or
a
I got
real
these
nice
secondhand
dwarf on that
models.
Silver Tower. Yeah.
Yeah, so like I'm accidentally already like narrowing it down and stuff, and like
Yeah.
if I accidentally like actually pick the model before I hit record, I am gonna be so angry with myself. But so
Okay.
I need to do this.
So
This is
maybe
an episode that's gonna
just
get done soon.
yeah. Don't talk about it. Don't think about that anymore.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
okay. You got
Um,
lots of other things to do. You got that. You got those blood angels to paint. Don't forget those. You gotta get those.
don't forget those. Don't
Yeah.
forget those. Yeah.
Don't want to ruin your own surprise.
No, 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 no. But yeah, so me personally, like I am also at a point where uh, I've just finished a project, and I am at the point where I need to decide what my next project is,
Hmm.
and starting to put in all these considerations about what I want to do, what I feel like I need to do. Here's another one. Just thinking of obligations. Like, do you ever give a painted model as a present? I've done that a couple of times, and there are hard dates on birthdays and
Yeah.
Christmases and
I mean,
all
I
that
did that
stuff.
over
Yeah.
Christmas. I sent some people some models.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely felt like, man, I gotta get these done. I gotta.
Mm-hmm.
I made an
Mm-hmm.
excuse even
Mm-hmm.
to make a video so that I could include the model in there to get it done. So yeah, that definitely hits you with the obligation, even though you're just trying to be nice.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, sorry I brought the obligations up again. Let's go back
'Cause they're
to like the
super
pure joy of it. How do you
Yes.
make positive decisions based on what you really want to do?
Well, personally, I stand in front of my collection that I put out on a shelf, and I just let it, flow in, and I go, I like this one, and I pick that one.
You're making fun of me now.
No, I'm legit serious. I should be making
Are you?
fun of you.
Okay, that's
Yeah, no, I'm serious. Yeah,
No,
like, I have a
sounds
shelf
amazing.
of
That's what I'm
unpainted
talking about
models.
here.
Yeah.
Like that, like, okay, I have finished what I needed to do for that last project.
Mhm.
I've put my last project on my shelf. And you just stand in front of your potentials and just soak it in, decide.
Yeah. Like I what I like to do is lay it all out so that I can see it. And I do. Like right next to me right now, I have a shelf of potential video, models to paint, right? Um and I just kind of I like to look at them. I like to just kind of take each one of them in, think like, okay, I could talk about these things. I could do this technique over here. And if it falls into a category where it's like, I've been hitting this too much, like I've been painting too many skeletons, then I'll think about that and I'll say, okay, maybe next month, set that one aside. It's like the Seraphon I just painted. It was in the middle of my shelf. It's been there for 3 or 4 months, and it was like, we've been talking about lizards quite a bit. I'm gonna pick this one right up. So it just kind of was there for me to get to, and I do like to do
Yeah,
that just for the
yeah.
joy of it.
That's really interesting when you can feel like, okay, now is the time. Like
Yeah.
if you've had those boxes on your shelf for months or years or whatever, and it is a great feeling to be like, now
Yeah.
is the time that I'm gonna pick up this box and paint these goblins or lizards or whatever it
Mhm.
is. Um, and that's kind of what we wanted to get to today is how do you get to that point where you're, what do I do next? What do I do next? What do I do? And then,
Mhm.
because I actually really like that moment of like suddenly be like, yes, this is my next project.
Yeah.
And, especially if you are legitimately excited about that. Like, ooh, I haven't thought about this dwarf for a little while, but this dwarf
Yeah.
is just perfect for the situation. Like I've really been hankering for some dwarves, and I've got, and especially like that feeling of excitement is enhanced when you're not just interested in the character that you're painting, but you've also recently figured out a new painting technique, or you've got like a new color in your
Yeah.
collection that you need to use. um and so in terms of those like positive feelings of really getting excited about something, a lot of times it is about, ooh, I just figured out how to do this crazy thing with the airbrush or with the dry brush or whatever the case may be. You're like, oh, this model is perfect for that, and
Yeah.
then the when everything comes together like that, yeah,
Right.
that's
It's gonna hit you, and you're gonna feel that little spark,
mm-hmm.
you know, and that's a very unique feeling. It's very nice, and I mean, unless you feel obligated to paint something, like that's probably the way you should just paint your minis. Like whatever hits you at the time, whatever feels the most fun. You
Yeah,
know, even if you're halfway through a thing and you see another one and go, ooh, well, I can do that right there. You know, pick up that model and then go for that and paint that for a little while. Jump back and forth between other projects. You know, like it's probably a dream.
that's the goal.
Yeah.
Maybe a dream, but even if you are just trying to get an army painted, like just choosing between the three units that you
Yes.
need to paint, like are we doing cavalry? Are we doing elites?
Mhm.
Are we doing foot soldiers? Whatever it is, like
Yeah.
um just really connecting with the, okay, what do I really want to do next? And is there something in particular that I can get excited about here? Did I
Yeah.
just get a little bit better at edge highlighting, or did I just learn how to mix up a cool wash, or whatever it is, like
Yeah.
um
It was just the other day I was hanging some shadow boxes, weirdly. They're like shot glass
right,
ones
right.
for model display, and I have them in my space now. Um and I was putting some Lord of the Rings, like Riders of Rohan, the horses. I was putting them in there, and as I was putting them in, I'm just like, man, I really want to paint a horse right now. And I went over to my area and I'm just like looking through some models, and it's like I was going through, I was sifting through all these like high elves and stuff, and they got horses, and I was just like getting less and less encouraged by that because they weren't just Riders of Rohan. Like it wasn't the same, which is a weird
Mm,
kind of a thing. Like I felt the need, and then it died away.
right, right. So I think if we have an actual thesis here, like the thesis is to like be able to identify why you get really excited
Yeah.
about something, and to make more of the projects that you do something that you're actively excited about doing, like
Right.
something that you have a reason for, like um yeah, figure out what it was that gave you just this hankering, this urge
Hmm.
to, like, call Rohan. And yeah.
Yeah. I still don't know what it was, but
Well,
yeah.
that's fine though. Like, in theory, everything in your collection, when you acquired it, you were excited
Hmm.
about pressing, submit bid, or whatever you do.
Yeah.
Like, you were excited when you bought that or acquired that. So that feeling will likely come again
Yeah.
when it's just the perfect moment. Like, when you bought it, it was the perfect moment to buy it, and maybe you should have just kept going and ripped that package open and painted it right then.
Probably.
And if you're a person with a smaller collection, this is an opportunity.
Hmm.
Like, go to your game store earlier in the day, like early on a Saturday. Go to your game store
Yeah.
and buy the thing that excites you the most, and by Monday maybe that'll be painted and look awesome, and then you can do that again next weekend. I don't know, but
That's true.
um
I was gonna bring that up too, of escalation games. Like if you're gonna go to
mm,
a store or something like that, a lot of the comic book shops and hobby shops and all that, they have like escalation leagues where it's like, oh, we're only doing 200 points every other week. You know, so it's
mhm,
like, obviously you're there to support the store you're buying from, that store, but it's like you're building up an army real slow, and you're looking at the wall and you're saying, well, this is my army, like what do I want to paint next? Because you don't have to pick a lot, and it's pretty slow. A lot of the stores
mhm,
do every 2 weeks just so that it gives everyone the opportunity to kind of be on the same page, and then you come in and you play your small game, and they get bigger and bigger. And I like that idea a lot for painting, because it does give you that opportunity to paint the thing that excites you, in the army that you picked, because there's that like sense of identity in the army that you picked, especially the first one. It's the one you're going to go
yeah,
back to quite often, so a lot of that stuff just
yeah,
continually comes up, and you maintain that happiness about it. So Yeah, if there's an escalation league near you, I would definitely recommend checking that out.
Yeah. That's kind of what Mark tried to do, and then Mark just painted 2,000 points of tree elves real fast,
Right,
and
2 Alarials
yeah,
and some tree man. Thanks. Thanks, Mark.
yeah, it was an escalation league at really a pace that I was not prepared for, but
Right.
it escalated
It
quickly. Yeah.
escalated a
Um,
little too quick.
but you find an escalation league on a nice pace for you. It's
Yeah,
escalating at the right rate. Yeah.
yeah. The stores in my area have varying levels of that.
Yeah, yeah. You get the right organizer for something like that. That sounds like an awesome idea. It's
Mhm.
a great way to support the shop and get to experience the army, small, medium, large, and like get everybody to actually grow an army and have an army by the end. In theory,
Yeah,
that sounds awesome. Yeah.
yeah.
I've never done it before, but it's on the list of things to get to eventually, but
It's
it's
on my
all
list.
about finding the most important thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's all we're talking about today. And we're probably winding down on this particular topic, but
we might be.
we've all got a to do list. And for me, I used to try to plan out my projects and plan out my videos and stuff and be like, this week I'm going to work on this. Next week I'm going to work on this. Next
Yeah,
week I'm going to work on this. And what I found was that the I could accurately plan the next video and maybe the one after that.
yeah,
But by two or three videos out, it was just like, nah, I'd really rather be painting this right now, or ooh,
yeah,
just much more excited to work on this project. And that's not a bad way to do it. You're supposed to be doing what you
yeah.
love here, and so following where your passion takes you, I think is reasonable. Just don't overcommit on.
Well, I think it comes across on YouTube when it's not something that you necessarily really feel,
Mm-hmm.
like when it's something you actually want to do. Um, on that Seraphon video, just bring it up again. I got
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
like, it was awesome to see something that you actually just wanted to paint. Like that came across, and that wasn't my intention. I just really wanted to paint it, so I did. And that does make a difference, like when you actually want to paint something,
Yeah.
you're gonna paint it and you're gonna have a much better time than if you're just like, oh, here's just my 50th
Yeah.
clan rat.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really interesting point. Like, not only were you having a better time, you were having such a better time that other people noticed. Like,
Right, yeah.
um, right. Uh, if that video had instead been a clan rat, and you're like, yeah, I painted up this rat and I gave him, some fun little scars, and I got to use this tone of pink,
Hmm.
and everybody's like, hey, a cool rat.
Yeah,
But
nice
like,
rat.
yeah, when someone actively noticed that you were having such a better time that I could tell that you were having a better time, like that, pay attention to that. Like that
Yeah,
means something. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And I just felt like that goes along with that. Like, you try and plan it out, you try and schedule it, and that sounds like such a good idea until you hit that wall and you're just like, I don't really want to do that one. Like I want to paint this over here. And like I think that should
Yeah.
just win out every time.
Yeah. I mean, I think we all have like a lot of great ideas for possible top, projects, stuff to paint, stuff to work on, and just being a little bit smarter about really working on the ones that are the most fun right then. If
Yeah.
you can make it through your to-do list in an order that is a slog, or you can make it through your to-do list in an order where like you're actually excited about each step that where you end up. And I don't know, there's some life lessons in there.
Yeah.
This is something we're gonna have to think about more, Casey. But
I think you're right. I mean, this is pretty deep. We could go real deep with this. Like so much as having a nice chart of like, where is the like obligation to fun ratio and where should you meet? Where does that meet in the middle? Like how do you balance that?
it'd also kind of be interesting, like take your to-do list and maybe at the first of each month or
Mm,
something, like rank what which of those projects on your to-do list sound like the most fun, and
yeah,
then
yeah.
go back the next month and re-rank them. It'd be actually really interesting to see how that changes around. and
Mhm.
and if there's a way to try to, just every month pick from, your top 1 and 2 choices on that list, so that especially if it does seem to be like changing around, like what's
Right.
like,
Kind of
one.
maximize your fun each time, like reevaluate.
Yeah, yeah. One day a
Mhm.
clan rat might just sound like the ticket, like just
Yeah,
hit the spot, like get
totally
some
has.
clan rats out there. That
100%.
yeah,
Mhm.
no, absolutely. Um, but if you're having a day where you're looking at your list of stuff you want to do and clan rats is not at the top,
Mhm.
not today,
Not
not
today.
today, little buddies.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd say we covered it for now. Like, we
Oh,
might
we
end up
covered
coming
it.
back to this, but I think for now, I think we're in a good spot. Yeah, it's no level system
Yeah,
for,
it's
ranking discs or anything, but, every episode can't have one of those.
but we can talk about that episode in every subsequent episode.
This
Yeah.
is a good point, yeah. Just keep ranking discs.
All right, so we got through the meat of today. What else is on the schedule here, Casey?
Well, I've got some
What's the fun
comments.
stuff?
Yeah, some just kind of quick
Mm,
comments that were left for us by some awesome subscribers over on the Paint Bravely YouTube channel. And that's just youtube.com/Paint Bravely the podcast. And this is just a good way to kind of get in touch with us, have a little bit of back and forth, and we can talk about some of these on the show, things that you might want to know about. So a lot of these we're going to do pretty quick. And again, we're not reading names. We're just going to abbreviate, but if you don't know why, then I'll leave that up to you to find out in one of the previous episodes. We're not going to rehash old news there. But I got a comment here from THD, and let's see. He said he has a question. Will there be Paint Bravely merch?
that seems like a reasonable idea.
Like, you'd wear a T-shirt, have a mug.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Oh yeah. I would buy it. So
Yeah,
that's a start. Yeah, there's a
yeah,
couple of sales right there. So
right. I totally bought my own merch. Like, from every project I've ever done where there was merch included, I probably bought more of it than anyone else. It's just a thing that happens, like, weirdly. Like, my band, I own several versions of every shirt we've ever made. Just how it goes.
so did we
Um,
just commit to making merch? Should we say like, oh, someday there'll be merch,
okay,
or do you
yeah.
have to do this in the next 2 weeks now, Casey? Like, what
No,
did we
and
just
in
do here?
fact, while I could technically do it in the next couple of weeks, just by hard work and making them myself, I don't feel like I need to do that. That seems like a lot of work. But
We'll
no,
wait for
once we hit
inspiration to strike.
right,
You got to
we
get like a funny catchphrase or something.
funny catchphrase.
Something perfect for a T-shirt.
Hmm.
We don't need to think of it now. In fact, we won't.
Dude,
But
that's a very good call. We're putting ourselves on the spot right now. Seems like a real bad idea.
and whatever stupid idea we come up with right now is going on a shirt.
Exactly.
And,
Forever.
will really determine the financial success of this stupid podcast that we're doing.
Right. No, it is an eventual goal for sure. Like, I have merch on my YouTube channel. I've sold merch for my band for the last 10 years, for a long time, but it's something that definitely goes kind of with the territory, and I think it'd be cool to have a coffee mug. Yeah, but not today.
Okay.
All
Okay.
right.
All right. We've got a comment from PE here.
Mm-hmm.
It still surprises me that you guys over the pond don't have a kettle for hot drinks as a standard part of a kitchen setup.
Well, that's
I
an
have
interesting.
never been in a house without one. Yeah.
That's an interesting statement, I suppose.
But every kitchen setup has a microwave, and
True.
you put a microwave safe mug in there, and you got hot water. I mean, there's lots of ways to get hot water.
Yeah. Although I mean, I've always had a tea kettle on my stove.
Oh,
Like, I have a real
well, there you
nice
go.
one. Like, it's all decorative and fancy. Yeah, I don't know. My family's been big on tea though.
Yeah, I'm big on instant coffee. I do drink tea also, but I'm also big on instant coffee,
Yeah.
and so I'm heating up several cups of water a day in the microwave. Yeah, it's a good way to do it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't
Yeah,
see
a
why
tea
not
kettle
unless you're
also good.
afraid of the radiation or something, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. You don't have a tea kettle though?
No,
Hmm. So he's not wrong. He's not completely wrong.
no, no,
Because I
no.
would think
Like,
that would be weird too, not having a tea kettle. Just seems like a thing that
hmm,
you have. I don't know.
not every American has one.
My a majority of my family comes from England, and they mostly stayed back east when they came over. But yeah, I don't know. That's probably just a weird thing that transferred with them from however
Hmm.
many years ago.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, if you've got like little China teacups and you don't want to
Hmm.
like break, I mean, you can't put those in the microwave.
That's
But
true. That's a good point.
you get yourself a nice hefty, Paint Bravely mug. Like, oh, we're gonna be printing
Uh,
on microwave safe mugs for sure. So yeah, pop those in the microwave.
I'm not gonna
1 minute
promise that
30
though.
seconds.
I
Yeah,
cannot
we don't know
promise
where
that
these
they
are
are
coming
going to
from.
be.
What are we, mug specialists? Yeah,
It's no discountmugs.com. Come on.
yeah. This is not a promise. This is best intentions here, but
Yeah,
we are firmly intending for these to be microwave safe mugs. So
intending. Yes,
I mean, we're gonna
100%.
buy them. We already told you that. Like,
Yeah, and I'm going to
if
put it in
I
the
if
microwave.
I buy a mug you can't put in the microwave, I'm gonna be upset. I don't
That's a
blame
good
you.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. What's next?
This one's from BL. Uh, just a quick one
Hmm.
of how do you properly care for your brushes and keep a proper tip?
Well, I've got some brush cleaner that I don't use often enough, and that's why I use cheap brushes. um,
Very nice.
yeah. No. So, what's the name of the company that has that the little
Oh,
tan plastic tin of brush cleaner?
it's the benefit of sitting in my own hobby space. I literally can just reach right over
Yeah.
the Masters brush cleaner.
Okay, that sounds right. Yeah, I have the one that's a little broader and shallower in design than that one, but yeah, the
Oh,
Masters
this one
brush
that
cleaner.
I'm holding on the camera is my travel size.
Oh,
Yeah, I got like a big
okay.
fat tub of it too.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is the brand of brush soap that everybody seems to own. I don't know how many
Yeah,
brands of brush soap are out there, but this seems to be like by far the most common,
yeah,
and it does a really good job. You just get your dirty brush a little bit wet and swipe it back and forth on the chunk of soap a few times. Rinse it a couple of times in between. I assume is the technique you're supposed to use.
yeah.
Um,
There's instructions on there, and that's pretty much what it
oh
is.
yeah, yeah. Just follow the instructions. But yeah, no. As you're wiping off the brush, give it just a little bit of a twist to
Hmm.
slightly twist the bristles back into a point. Yeah, as long as you're wiping in the correct direction, just that little bit of a twist using brush soap,
Yeah,
they will last longer than they ordinarily will. All brushes have a life cycle and a expiration date. Like they will all die on you eventually, but you can make them last longer. Personally, I do use cheap synthetic brushes, and I'm always on the lookout of finding a brand and a design that's better than the last pack I used. Um, and so for me, part of my answer is just if I use a 30-cent paintbrush and it lasts me a couple of projects, and then I get a new one with a fresh tip. For me, that's a fine answer too. But even those will definitely last longer with just
yeah,
a proper care after each use. The rinsing them off in your paint water jar goes a long ways, but much farther if you actually soap them up and bring them back to their natural clean tip before you put them away.
yeah. I'm going a little bit deeper into that real quick. Um, Making sure not to dip your paint fully in, or your paintbrush like fully into the paint. Don't let it get to that, the ferrule, the stick area, right, or the metal. Um, because that gets paint way up in the bristles and it dries and it splays your brushes, and that's why you don't have a good tip on it. So you really only want to go up like halfway up the brush when you're dipping it in paint. And that will help, you know, as well as cleaning, but it will help your brush last a lot longer. So definitely recommend that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I am glad you remembered to mention that. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's see here. There's one more. You want to read that one out?
Okay. SW says, "Hey guys, don't let the haters get you down.
Mm.
Love your podcast, and it's amazing to listen to. Really helps with making and painting minis. A question I have is, what tabletop game armies do you collect, and what armies are you looking to start collecting? Myself, I collect Blood Angels and House Hawkshroud. Imperial Knights, okay. But keep the amazing work up, and I'm looking forward to the next episode." Okay, we'll start with the first thing there.
We got haters.
So Casey, you and I were talking about this before, but before we hit the record button here. But this first bit, hey guys, don't let the haters get you down. So I actually hadn't checked the YouTube channel for about a week, personally, and you had grabbed this comment out and posted it up, and like I had a moment of fear, like was there just like a wall of spam of like, did we
You're the worst.
say something that really lit a fire under people last episode? Like, did we acquire a lot of haters really fast?
As far as I know, no.
Okay, so this comment got me a little anxious, but the haters are not getting me down.
No,
they rarely do, but
right.
I was, yeah, I appreciate that though. No, we're not letting the haters get to us, and we're hoping there's not too many. Hopefully they've wandered off by episode 5 here, but
that's the thing with a podcast, right? Like you can just not listen. Like that's fine too. Like it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if someone is listening to like hour 2 of podcast number 5, like
right,
that's a love-hate situation. That's different. Yeah. Okay, so but I'll let you get into what what do you play? What do you collect, Casey? What's on the list for you?
Good kitty.
Yeah, so my cat just came up and started nuzzling against the microphone here. Which I'm not going to apologize for, but I am trying to control to a degree.
Right. Where's the spray bottle? Where's the spray bottle? Anyways, I really like to play Age of Sigmar and Warcry. I more recently started getting into Warcry because I like the idea of a skirmish game, and because I am painting for YouTube, it's a lot easier for me to just kind of bust out like 9 or 10 guys to play a game than it is for a 2,000 point army. That being said, I do have probably a good 3,500, maybe 4,000 points of Nurgle for Age of Sigmar, and another at least 2,500 points in Iron Jaws. I got a lot of Iron Jaws and goblins. I have a goblin army, and I just got a lot of crap laying around mostly. Like those are the things that are painted, and I have a bunch of stuff started, but my main thing is definitely Nurgle. Like I just like Nurgle models. I like to collect them. I was pretty excited when they came out for Warcry because it's like instant armies basically. It's like, oh, I already have all those models, so it's kind of nice. And I like that aspect of Warcry is that it interchanges with Age of Sigmar, so it's a good excuse to start a new army, which I'm sure was their plan. But I don't know. It's like it's a nice mix of things. Like I can kind of go back and forth whenever I want. So I really like doing that. Yeah. What about you, Brent?
Yeah, that's awesome that you have some actually complete large armies. That's great.
Yeah. I don't know. Nurgle is one of those things though. Like you can go a lot of directions with it, and it doesn't have to be super samey match everything. The grosser it is, the better. And like you throw down 120 plague bears on the table, and it's like, well, there's 1,500 points right there, and they all just look disgusting. And I don't know, there's something about it.
Yeah. So for me, I have always had the dream of having a fully painted 2,000 point army, and I've never quite got there. So for 40k, I have Dark Eldar, mostly 3rd edition models that are mostly painted up enough so I can field 2,000 points of decently painted Dark Eldar troops and then not really painted vehicles with them. Like it, I can not completely embarrass myself at a friendly game.
Yeah.
People are eventually going to get angry against playing against Dark Eldar Raiders and Dark Lances because it's a very mono type list.
Hmm.
It's a list that has 6 raiders for 6 squads of Dark Eldar warriors, and of course the squads of Dark Eldar warriors are red, yellow, orange, blue, green, purple. Um, because of course I did that. Every time I'm trying to pick a color scheme, I like so many of the different colors that I try out that I'm always looking for that excuse to just do the rainbow army, find an excuse for each squad to be a different color, but I try to resist that, but sometimes it can't. Um, so that's the closest thing I have to a 40k army. And then for Age of Sigmar, I think I think it could be a really fun game. The games that I've played have been fun,
Hmm.
and I would like to eventually have a 2,000 point army so I can play more often. And I've got a start collecting box of orcs done. I've got my square based orcs from 20 years ago. Those have all been pretty much phased out of Age of Sigmar. The just vanilla
Hmm.
orc lads. Those have been replaced by the Savage Orcs and Iron Jaws, which I do have models
Yeah.
of, but are unpainted. So orcs will always be a passion for me, and someday I may even have a complete army that looks cool. But lurking in this room, I have a lot of
Mm.
Iron Jaws models, and as soon as I can figure out, the color of armor for them, that's going to be an awesome project.
You painted your Slaves of Darkness the same way that I painted my Iron Jaws army.
I actually didn't realize that. I'd watched your Iron Jaws paint video, but I had forgotten that you started with the pink paint base coat.
Right.
Yeah. Um, but that's a great technique. But I do have there was a video of this, but I do have a start collecting box for Slaves to Darkness painted. I've got that yellowy orange paint scheme. And so there's 650 points, I think, something
Yeah.
like that.
It's
That
a
I'm
good
actually
start.
really happy with the paint scheme. Yeah. Um, I'm really happy with that paint scheme. I have more Slaves to Darkness around here. I want to make some changes to the bases I did on those guys.
Oh, the
And that's one of
cobblestone.
those, yeah,
Hmm.
I, hand sculpted in cobblestones in Milliput and green stuff. And I just didn't really like how that turned out. And
Right.
the rest of the models I really like. And
They
if
are
it was a
insane.
situation where I liked the model and the bases, I probably would have painted more of that army by now. But
Mm.
it's one of those things where I'm just not 100% satisfied with the plan, and so I can't keep going
Right.
on it.
No, that makes sense.
So yeah, that's one of those things where I need to spend a couple of days figuring out how to make bases I really like and that really fit with that army. And
Yeah.
then once I have something that's like the level of paint job that I want with bases that look good with it, I think that one may actually come together fairly fast. That's on my list of
Yeah.
videos to do someday. But
Well, yeah.
um,
For that, you grab like what that three-headed Archaon. Yeah, you're done right there. It's like
oh
900
sure,
points.
I actually don't like the super large models.
Yeah, I don't either.
Someday I might do it as like a painting project, but in an actual game,
Hmm.
um, I played one game with my friend Alex, and he had Mortarion
Oh, sure.
in in a game of 40k, and is just a giant, nasty Nurgle model
Yeah.
who just being near him causes wounds to your models. Like
Yeah.
his gun shoots through things, and like it just does a bunch of really annoying rules,
Yeah.
and it just blew up all my Dark Eldar Raiders in one turn. I just,
Yeah.
good game
They're
on
never
turn
that fun
two.
to play with.
Yeah. Yeah, the really big models, it's just like, okay, do you have a really big model to
Like,
fight against
no.
it? And then who wins the dice rolls between those two really big
Yeah,
models?
exactly.
I am not a professional player. I understand that there are more subtleties to it than that, but
Yeah.
as a complete novice, they seem to make the games less fun rather than more fun.
Yeah.
Having a, I always just like the little dudes, like the regular knights fighting it out, like the Chaos Knight. That's like the perfect size for an elite unit. Like it's obviously better than your foot
Mhm.
soldier, but it's still a regular dude and kind of fits into the rest of the flow of the game from the way I see
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I enjoy those like small to mid-sized type of models. Like I think the biggest model I have is the Iron Jaws Maw Crusher, but like it's
Mm,
not that big when you have it on the table, and it doesn't move very fast. Like it's a pretty heavy hitting model, but like you watch battle reports all the time and they get taken out. So, it's not like overpowered and stupid to play with.
yeah. So I mean,
Yeah.
having just said that, I also like like clearly both of us have. I have unpainted Seraphon models around here, lizard mans, and of course I want to paint an army of dinosaurs. Like
Yeah.
that's the point. So like I don't know how unbalanced a T Rex is, but
Mm,
it's
I don't
gonna be in
know.
my army. Like,
Right, like I want to buy 3 of those start collecting boxes and go from there.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, I have a lot of unpainted models, and some of that's from used purchases, and some of that's from just a itchy trigger finger on some stuff.
Right.
But
Those
um,
Christmas deals.
oh, Christmas deals.
Yeah. I got a few large boxes of models that I haven't even touched from those. Like those Battle Force boxes.
I do know. I do know.
Yeah. You know.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Both of us obviously love Warhammer and have a ton of models, both new and used. And there are other armies coming eventually. And
Yeah.
the day that I finally have a 2,000 point army that I am truly happy with the paint job, that's one of those big overarching lifelong goals, and that'll be a big day someday. Someday.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, get Mark off my back. Yeah.
Mark. Come on, man.
Of course, then like ninth edition 40k is gonna come out. Mark's gonna go back to
Ugh.
his 4,000 point Eldar, 4,000 point wolves, space wolves there.
Yeah. Mark.
But that's all right though.
I mean that is the idea of the hobby.
That's all part of it. So
Collect all the things. And on that note, thank you for joining us on another episode of Paint Bravely. If you enjoyed this podcast, please help us out by leaving us a review on iTunes, subscribing to the YouTube channel, and sharing this message with your hobby friends. As always, we appreciate you very much for listening, and we will talk to you next time.
have a great day.